Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of our PS1 style horror game series. Today we're going to be creating our world as well as adding in our shelves for future tasks, and we're also going to be adding in different lighting for parts of our world. So before we get started, we're going to want to make sure we have some models. I have some right here. I will include them in the description, so if you are following along with the series, you can just download these, drag and drop them into the file folder as I will right now. Before we start importing any models, we're going to go under project settings, and we'll type in textures. And under textures, we'll want to go to default texture filter and click linear and then go to nearest. And this is going to increase the resolution of any of the models textures that you've imported. Otherwise, if you do want to have blurry textures, you can leave that as linear. So as you can see here, I added in 3 folders. These are going to hold in our models. So I'm going to really quickly open this up, and I'll select this folder for interactables, and I'm going to select aisle items 1 through 6. So here, and I'm going to shift click, and then I'm also going to control click this shelf GLB file, and I'm going to drag all this in while this folder is highlighted, and it's going to import. It'll just take a moment, but it's getting in all the textures and the models. And there we go, we have our files. And so now we're going to add in our world base plate. So let me just grab this really quick. It's going to be this. So this is coming from an asset pack made by Elbolillo. And so I'm going to just drop this in really quick and show you. I'll include the actual model that I used from, I think it's called Sketchfab. I can't really remember off the top of my head, but I can show you right here. You've likely seen some of his models from different games that other people have made, but this is going to be our base plate for this world. And so if we just drag and drop this in by clicking instantiate child scene and we do gas station merged, we have here the actual world. But what you're going to notice is if we actually test run this and we try to walk somewhere, everything seems fine, right? Well, not quite, because we don't have any collisions. So going to exit out of there. So here's a common problem that a lot of people who are just getting to 3D come across, which is how do I create collisions for all these like little things? Like you can see here, there's just so many different edges and bumps, and then there's the doorways. Those cause a lot of issues. Well, basically, we're going to right-click this, which is our model that we just put in, editable children. And since I have completely merged all the basically static parts of this map, I can actually just select this and click on mesh. Before we do this, I'm just going to really quickly get rid of our static body since we're no longer going to need it. And we're going to click on here. I'm going to click on mesh, create collision shape. And so what we're going to want to do is have a sibling, and we're actually static body child, because this is going to create a static body. And we want this to be tri-mesh because we have a lot of different complex shapes. So we'll create here. And now Godot has completely made us collisions for this map. And so if you want this to have less complex collision shapes here, like for here, for example, you can go into Blender and make these separate models, which I might do in a future video, but for our case, this will work. So we can test run this and see. We can actually walk on this surface. We can carry this box around, and I'll even just drop it here. Everything works fine, so I can clip this item through here, but I can't walk through this a wall here. However, we're going to run into our first issue here, which is that we can't walk through any doorways. And this is because of the player's collision being too wide. So we can just press stop running here. For my case, I can just set the capsule shape here to 0.45, and that should solve the problem. Since these doorways are pretty thin, we can just set it to that and the player should be able to walk through it just fine. So I'll click run and we'll just go down here really quick and problem solved. We can actually walk through the doorways nice and easy, and we can walk around and check out the map. So of course, it's pretty dark in here and you wouldn't want it to look like this since the map doesn't really have much readability. So we'll actually go ahead and fix this by adding in some lighting. So we can go ahead and create a new node 3D. So I'll just do that. And we'll call this gas station lighting, because in a future video, I'm going to want to control this lighting with a moment in the game where all the lights cuts off and the player has to go back here and turn on the lights with this breaker here. So I'm going to add in some spotlights. So I'll type in light, and we'll have several options. So we have an omni light, which will act like a light bulb or candle, as it says. And for our case, we want a spotlight such as a reflector spotlight or a lantern. So I'll add this in here. And we're going to bring this over to the gas station. So I'm going to rotate this to 90 degrees. We can go under transform, set this to negative 90 degrees, bring this down. And so far it's all right, but what we'll want to do here is bring this up and set it to where the spot, we can leave it at 5 here. What I'm going to change, however, is the angle. So it spans out to roughly 90 degrees. And then we're going to go under light, and we want to increase the energy for this. So now that we have this, we can duplicate them and just have them lying around. And so in a future video where we have to control these lights, we can actually run a script that goes through each child of this gas station lighting node 3D. And we can toggle all of them off to make it look like all the lights had just completely turned off. Okay, so next we're gonna add in lights for the outside. So I'll add another node 3D and I'll do outside lights or lighting just to keep it consistent. And I'm going to duplicate this, put this in here, and then I'm going to bring out this light over here to the outside. And I want to make sure that this light has a deeper range. That way it can reach to the floor, doesn't leave this area pretty dark. So we'll set this to roughly 13. As you can see, it lights it up pretty nicely. All right, so now that we have our lighting, we can actually run this and see how it looks. So way more bright now. And we just need to change some things for the world environment. But as you can see, now we have some lighting for the outside, and if we go in here, the inside. And so far it's looking all right. We could probably dim down the amount of energy that these lights are producing, since you can see it's very bright around here versus over here, but no problem for right now. And I also forgot to add some lights into here, so I'll do that later. But we're going to add in our shelves. All right, so next let's create our shelf. So I'm going to create a new scene, choose other node, and I'm going to go under static body 3D. And I'm just going to rename this to shelf. And I'm going to add in my shelf model, as you can see here. And I'm going to add in a collision shape 3D. So just collision shape 3D right here. And we'll do a very simple box. So it doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be within the boundaries of this model. And after we do this, we can add in a label 3D to be exact. We can go under text and we'll call it empty. We'll bring it up a little bit and we're going to do flags and we're going to enable billboard. So now we can see that it's empty from wherever. And we're going to also add in a node 3D and we're going to call this item spawn. So the neat thing about what we're doing here is we're going to attach an ID to each shelf, and anytime this shelf is empty and we need to refill it with items, it can go into the correct model, and this will be the model that will be loading in, and it'll put it in its place and it'll remove this empty tag. So we can go ahead and save this, Control Shift S, and I'm going to have it under scenes, interactables, and I'm going to save it as shelf.tscn. And then under this, we're going to do a new script, and I'll do shelf.gd, and I'll click here, I'll go back, go to scripts, interactables, open, and I'll save it through this path. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and add in our code for our shelf. So I'm just gonna really quickly remove all of that, and we'll add in our variables here. So we have here our item ID. This will be used to look for our models here. So we have aisle items 1, which this ID will use, aisle items 2, all the way to aisle items 6. So next I'll add in this chunk, and this is basically going to spawn in our items. And we have a function here, load item mesh, and then update shelf. So I'm going to go down here, and with load item mesh, we're going to instance it, and we'll just check to make sure nothing is inside of there, and we'll reset it to null. Then we're going to path to our interactable model right here. So if you need to get the path, what you can do is go to the model that you're looking for, copy path, and we're going to basically paste it in here. Now you notice that we want to be able to grab anything, any model within this item ID range. So we're going to get rid of the file extension, then get rid of the number, and the item ID number is going to be attached via this string function, which is pretty similar to Python's. And then we're going to add our file extension .glb. If you're using a FBX file, you can just set it to .fbx. And of course, this is just loading it in and setting it inside of the item spawn. Lastly, we're going to add in some functions here. So update shelf, we're just setting our item instance to invisible if it's empty and then visible if it is full. And the reasoning behind that is because we don't need to despawn the items that are inside item spawn. That would be taking up too much time and resources. And so we can also set our label to empty to notify the player. And then we'll have here restock. This will toggle off the visibility, and it's going to update shelf, and the same for empty shelf. So I'm back in the main world here, and I set up my shelves here. And so you can look through and see that all of these would be full because I have it toggled as is full, and each of them have IDs. So we can go ahead and run this game, and now we can go ahead and check. As you can see, all of these shelves here are stocked. And so if we were to go back and actually unselect some of these, then you'll be able to see that some of these will be marked as empty. So we'll run, and we'll go down here. We can even bring our little box, but we have not configured this yet. And as you can see, the ones that I selected here are empty. And so they'll need to be restocked by us using the supply boxes and holding down a button that will let us refill it. So we'll want to go ahead and create a new scene. We'll go under other node and we'll do a canvas layer. We're going to call this progress UI. And we're going to add a progress bar. And this will give us a visual representation of our progress for restocking shelves. So we can click here and set the anchor to center bottom, and we can just expand here, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I'll set it a little bit farther out like this, and I'll personally get rid of show percentage, and I'm going to bring up the bar just a little bit off of the edge. So I can go ahead and save this, Control Shift S, go under scenes, and I'll create a new folder. This is going to be called UI, and I'll just rename this to UI.tscn. So progress UI.tscn and save. So now we can go back to our shelf script here, and I'm just going to add some new variables. So I'm going to add in restock time is going to be a float equal to 2 seconds. And then we're going to add an area. We'll add this in to our shelf, but I'll do the script first. And this area is going to be able to detect when the player is nearby. That way it gets the correct shelf that it is restocking. This also helps the player from being able to restock shelves from the other side of a building and stuff. So next I'm going to include in some of these variables, and these are just going to basically check the progress of the player restocking the shelves. And then I'm going to add in these two. And so basically what we're doing for this line is we're getting the tree and then getting the root. So we're getting the very top of the scene. And then for our find child function, we're looking for progress UI, and we're going to be checking recursively. Here, I'll just highlight this. So if recursive is false, only gets the node's direct child, which is not what we want. We want to look for specifically the progress UI. It might be nested in different areas. And then if owned true, only descendants with a valid owner are checked. And we do not want this, otherwise we'll not be able to find our progress UI since it's not going to be directly owned by a node. And this here is a little ternary expression. And so basically we're looking to get the progress bar of the node. So we can go ahead and manipulate it from just this code here. We don't need to make a script for progress UI. And if restock, it's going to fill in the details for restock UI, else it's going to do null. That way it does not give us a huge crash error. So we can go ahead and create our area 3D right here. And I'm going to add in a collision. So we'll go under 3D, and I'm going to just really quickly make a box shape. And the trick here that we really want to make sure we do is we want to only create this collision to where the player is going to be standing. Because if you, for example, set it here, if he goes behind here and he uses his ray cast to cast into this object, he's going to be able to, which really doesn't make sense. And if there is a wall here, which there will be, as you can see for this shelf here, that's going to kind of break the immersion of the game and make it a bit too easy for the player. So we'll just want to set this back here, and we'll just kind of set it into here. That way he's centralized into this one spot, and we'll bring up the collision to here, and there we go. So we can just save this, and we'll want to click into here, and we're going to connect body entered, and then we're going to connect body exited. And if I went a bit too fast, all I did was clicked into area 3D, went from here, from inspector to signals, and I clicked body entered and body exited. So we can go back into our script, and I'm going to just really quickly go up here, and I'm going to add up here our process. And so we want to go here into our input and make sure the hold interact button is being pressed, and there is an object being held by the player because we do not want to be refilling a shelf without any items. And we'll set the is restocking to true. Our progress for restocking will be updated, which is why we have a process function here. And it's going to check here if the timer is the same as the restock time it finishes. Otherwise, it's going to reset the restock, and that's because we want to make sure that if the player looks away or stops, then it will reset. That way the player has to do it again. So I'm going to go down here to our area or body entered functions, and I'm going to add in for body entered this. And this is just going to check if our body is in the group player, which we're going to add in a bit. And then for body exited, we're going to want to add in this, which is just going to basically set the opposite details plus reset the restock because that means he's leaving. So I'm going to go ahead and add in our next functions to get rid of these errors. So update progress bar, and we're just going to be setting this. Resets restock, it's going to reset the details. So next we're going to go ahead and add in our finish restock. And as you notice, we have a thing called Task Manager, and this is going to be an auto load that we'll add in a bit. But basically for this, it's going to do if player and player ref dot held object. Basically, well, I'm going to save the task manager for the next episode. I'm going to just make sure that we have restocking completed first. So let's go ahead to our world, and we're going to go to the very top of our scene and add in a new node or new scene. And this will be progress UI. And so we can check here in 2D that we have it right here, and we can save. Before we do that, actually, we'll want to add the player into the group. So we'll go under our player and then go from here to groups. We're going to click here and we'll just type it player. Notice how I'm setting it as the same as the parameter was for our search. And this is because if we were to capitalize this, it would not be able to find it. This is a case sensitive thing. So you don't need to enable global. We can just set it as a scene group and we can save. So just to show, I can go under shelf and if body that is in group player, and we're setting it to the exact same name. So we can go into our world and we can set some of these shelves to be different IDs. So I can set this to 2, this to 3, and this to say 5. And we can run this here. And I'll go over this error that we're getting here in a bit. But for right now, let's just test the game. And I enabled here collisions, but oh, I forgot. Here, let me run it one more time. So I'm going to grab here this box and I'm going to go down. And as you can see, we have some item shelves here and they have different items. So this is aisle items 1, then this is 2. And over here we have the other ones, which are some chips. And let's go ahead and grab this box. And now that we're up close to it, we can hold F. And as you can see, there's a progress bar. So if we try to refill this and then look away, then it's going to stop. Of course, we might need to fix the code a little bit, but it's good for right now. So we can just refill this. And there you go. Now you have a bunch of cans here. And so I'll address some of the issues that we saw here. So one of the first issues you might have noticed is that while I was restocking here, I was able to look away and still continue restocking, which is not an intended feature. So we're going to go over to our shelf script and we'll go into here. For our process, we're going to fill in this block. We're going to replace it. And essentially what we're going to be doing here is checking if it is not full, aka the shelf, and the player is in range and the player ref is valid, then we're going to ask or get a function from the player called get raycast target, which we will add into the player in a bit. And it's going to be checking for this input if it's valid, as well as these other parameters. And so we can go over to our player and we can just add in this function right around here. And essentially this function here called get raycast target is going to it's basically just going to make sure the raycast is enabled. It's going to force a raycast update, which basically is going to force it to activate and tell us what's going on. And it's going to toggle it off and return the collider. And this should work. So if we head over to our world scene here, we can grab a box, pick it up here, and we can start refilling this, but the moment we look away, it's going to stop. And this is exactly what we want. So we can continue refilling this, and it's going to refill the shelf. So I'll grab another box here, and I'll do the same here just to kind of verify. And there we go. So now we have that fixed. What I'm also going to do is improve the ambience, because as you can see, we have very harsh shadow lines here, and it'll make it a bit difficult for the player to see any details of the world. So we're just going to change that really quick. So you can head into your world environment here, and we can set the color for our environment. I set the color here way too dark, so you can just make it a lighter color so all details are more visible in all the shadows. And we can go ahead and add in fog. And it's really up to you, the color or the way the fog looks. I will personally make it slightly darker. And we can add a density, usually 0.08 is a good density for horror games. Click save by doing Control S. Lastly, you might have noticed an error that keeps popping up. So if I just really quickly change a detail here and I load it in, you have here this error or warning that is telling you how you have essentially too much embedded data in one of the files. And this is because we're using a .tscn file, which is going to embed a lot of the data, including for the models. And this may not be happening with you depending on what models you're using, but as you can see here, we're using a lot of textures here, and that's going to influence the amount of space that is being embedded into the file. So a nice simple fix for this is to go into your world scene, and we can actually, since we're on it, we can do Control Shift S, and now we can save it as a separate world. So I can do world 2, and I'm going to save it as a .scn file. This is just going to be a base scene file, and it will not embed any data. We can press save. So now if I run this, I'm not getting an error anymore. And if we run it one more time, but with changing something, let's set this to 2. I'll run it again. You do not get an error anymore. And this will also help with performance anytime this specific scene is being loaded up. Thank you all for watching. If this video is useful or helpful in any way, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and also comment down any suggestions or questions you have, and I'll see you guys in the next video.